For Ars Lyrica's second episode of musical Storytime, we narrated the legend of the Pied Piper of Hamelin in English and German. The music in the segment was taken from a book of German folk melodies, which are as culturally relevant in Germany as songs like What a Wonderful World and Over the Rainbow are in the US. The German folk songs we used, however, are hundreds of years old, having originated during the 16th and 17th centuries, before the United States was even a country.
As an artist, you can rely on the audience knowing it and do your variations and interpretation. It has to be the same in the US with all the folk traditionals and things that are going way back. Yeah. Isn't it the same?
It's similar. So we brought this book that is a collection of folk songs that we all grew up with. It's a book that contains the song we just talked about and all the songs that are part of the musical Storytime today. And it's just something that every German kid knows.
The story of the Pied Piper originated in the town of Hamelin.
Just like the music, folk stories play an important role in Germany's cultural tradition. And we call these particular stories, Sagen, which is basically a word for legends. And a Sage or a legend in German is a shorter story of events that are a little bit outside of reality, and oftentimes they're associated with a very particular place. In this example, it's the city of Hamelin or the town of Hamelin, or they're associated with a person or some kind of historic event which makes them seem real, but they're not real. So the Pied Piper or Rattenfänger von Hamelin is such a story. And the Grimm brothers, the Brüder Grimm, the famous collectors of folk and fairy tales in the 19th century, published this particular story in their book of legends, of Sagen, which should not be confused with their book or their collection of fairy tales that we all know.
Sagen are legends that depict real places, people, and events in history, but may incorporate elements of fantasy into the story. Fairy tales, on the other hand, are fictional, like nursery rhymes and cautionary tales about witches and animals that talk.
And we chose this story because it's almost an equally popular story in the US as it is in Germany, but many people here might not be aware of its origins. So that said, we chose music from, again, this book that is from the 16th and 17th century, because that is the time that this particular legend became popular in its form that we now know.
Clara Haymon, who narrated in English and German and sung the music for this segment, has experience recording multiple tracks since her senior year was transitioned to online in March of 2020.
I actually like doing that kind of stuff a lot. And ever since we kind of moved online for school last year at the end of my senior year and everything, I started getting to know GarageBand and other forms of recording platforms a lot better than I had before. So when I was asked to do this project, I was actually really excited because it gave me an opportunity to explore it more. And I know I can really rely on myself if I sing two different parts and then put them together. So it wasn't actually that difficult or anything, just to learn two fairly simple parts, because it's a folk tune, you know, something for children to listen to and children to learn and sing and everything. When I arranged two parts, it was really fun to sing them separately and then listen to the final sound put together, which I really liked.
Growing up in a German-American household in Houston, Clara was familiar with German language and traditions, but was enrolled in a one-day-a-week program to study German formally.
When I was really young, enrolled me in the Deutsche Samstagschule Houston, and that's just like a Saturday morning class for bilingual kids, or maybe not bilingual, just like an intro to German. And I actually really disliked it because it meant I had to give up my Saturday mornings. But I went there for a good like 10 years, and it really reinforced, like, I was able to really understand it and read it. But on the other hand, speaking and writing weren't exactly my strong suits in the language, and they're still not completely. That's something that I feel like you really have to grow up in that country to fully learn. And then, but it was really fun being bilingual when I was a kid, because I went to the school where not a lot of people were bilingual, and it was something that really helped me like stand out, and I felt different than the other kids in that sense. I guess when I was a kid, I didn't always appreciate that as much as I do now. But then when I transferred to high school, I went to the international school, the Audi International School, and I made a deal with my mom that if I went there and took German there as my second language, then I could stop going to this early Saturday school in the morning for German. I actually loved it. I took 4 years. I had class almost every day of the week, and my German got like way better. And I got mostly like I felt very comfortable in the language, so much that I actually had a gap semester. So this is my first semester in college. And I felt so comfortable in the language that I went to Germany for 3 months on my own, and I stayed with my mom's cousin and like watched his kids some of the time. And I just got way more comfortable in the language, and it was a lot of fun. And I don't think I could have done that if not for growing up bilingual and having all these opportunities that I had as a kid to speak the language and hear the language. And not only that, we also had the traditions at home, like all the Christmas traditions. And it was something I didn't always appreciate, but I definitely do now. And it's really a large part of who I am, I'd say.
There are 3 German folk songs that you'll hear in the Pied Piper. Each song was transcribed from Sonja's German songbook, and then composer Emma Wein wrote a harmony and arranged a harpsichord part in the style of Bach. The first, Die Goldene Sonne, or The Golden Sun, was transcribed in 1666. You'll hear it first at the beginning of the segment as Clara introduces the story. It's one of the most well-known songs in the German songbook and has deep cultural roots. Then you'll hear Grüß Gott, or Good Day, which becomes the theme of the rats. Emma rearranged the song to be in a minor key, and the original tune sounded like this. Emma heard that if the song were in minor, it could fit the scampering and squeaking of rats perfectly.
Grüß Gott, du schöner Wein, da bist du wiederum hier. Tust jung und alt erfreuen mit deiner Blumenzier. Die lieben Vöglein alle, sie singen also hell. Frau Nachtigall mit Schale hat die vernehmste Stell. Die kalten Wind verstummen, der Himmel ist gar blau.
As the townspeople finally decide to call the Pied Piper to rid their homes of rats, you hear the song Der Winter, or The Winter, played on the recorder. When the Pied Piper sets to work, you hear The Winter again, but this time it's in a minor key and is faster. The new arrangement is lilting and playful, but with an undertone of power and foreshadowing for the rest of the story. As the audience learns that the people of Hamelin are just as greedy as the rats they despise, you'll hear Good Day again, the rats' theme. Now, the song is played just in the harpsichord. You don't need a piper or a singer's voice to understand that the humans and the rats are more similar than we thought. When the piper sees that the town's real riches are its children, we hear the golden sun once again. But this time, we only hear the harpsichord. It's a subtle sound which complements the vibrant colors of the illustrations at that point in the story. The piper's song for rounding up the town's children is Good Day, the rats' theme, one more time. Now it's a finale utilizing 4 voices, 2 lines of recorder and 2 lines of voice, but instead of singing with the German, you hear Clara singing on La. The voice becomes a duet partner of the recorder, which signifies that the children are happy to go with the piper. They're able to transform their parents' greed into a new journey for themselves. And finally, as the children leave for a brighter future, we hear the golden sun once more, signifying a new beginning. The future is truly brighter for the town's children, and they have the opportunity to rewrite their parents' histories through their own lives.